Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome to another episode of Dads from the Crypt. I think we're episode 195, actually. My name is Jason. I'll be your host tonight, and I am joined by Mondo.
Hello.
Hello. And coming to us by voice from coming down the mountain from in the Smoky Mountains, we have Jody. And you two are coming right off of going to Chattanooga Film Festival. How was it?
I had a great time. Aside from Jody and I getting into some wacky wake and bakery action at a local shop that infuses lattes with THC or Delta 9 or whatever the hell is legal in Tennessee. Aside from that, I mean, even that wasn't the worst thing. That was still fun eventually. But it was a great weekend. Met a lot of cool people. Got to see our friend Kim from Fangoria and Phil from Fangoria, which was awesome. I got to hang out with Allison from Who's There, and got to hang out with our buddy Joe Ferry from the Films at First Sight podcast. So it was a great time, great movies. Got to meet a lot of filmmakers. I'd recommend everybody do it some year. It's well worth it.
What was your guys' one favorite movie that you want to shout out?
It's not genre, but it was done only on streaming as a special release. But there's a one called American Comic about basically the dichotomy of two comedians and their careers. It's done like a mockumentary style that I would highly recommend when that eventually hits VOD or hits some kind of platform where people can watch it.
Cool. Jody, what was your favorite?
Yeah, that's also my favorite.
Well, Mondo already talked about that one, so choose another.
We ended up.
Well, guys, looks like we lost Jody. Jody is as what is it, Jane's Addiction song? He is coming down the mountain right now. So hopefully we'll get him back here. So it might just be the two of us for the next 45 minutes or whatever for your listening pleasure. So we'll have to figure it out from here. But Jody's also trying to mention a film we saw called Self-Help at Chattanooga Film Festival. Self-Help is I really enjoyed that one too. It's done by Eric Bloomquist, who did She Came from the Woods, who did Founders Day, and it's not quite a horror film, but very, very well done. I enjoyed that one as well. Another one I think we both agreed on is there was a fun one called King Baby, which is about two guys whose car gets broken. They basically their car gets broken down in like Scotland, I think, or Ireland, somewhere in Europe in that area. So they say, fuck it. And they just find this castle and they decide to live at the castle. One person being the king, one person being the liege or being the servant. And Jody put it best. I think in Jody's Letterboxd reviews, he put men will do literally anything instead of going to therapy. And it's kind of a great tagline for the movie. We also loved, they did a lot of shorts blocks, and we all agreed on a lot of the good shorts they did. Kraken's Maw was one of my favorites. A lot of good shorts, though. And I think right now, if you're listening to this right now, the festival has ended. Next year, I'd highly recommend virtual passes run about $200 for 8 days worth of movies. You can also, about halfway through, he'll do a back end pass if you can't make all the days. And for like $100, you get to watch anything that's been released over those 8 days that wasn't a timed release. We'll go into it more. We should have an episode next week with Jody, myself, Allison from the Who's There podcast, and our friend Joe Ferry again at Films at First Sight, where we're going to break down a lot of stuff at the Chattanooga Film Festival, what we saw, what we loved, what we maybe didn't love so much. But again, even the stuff I don't love when I go to these, like some of the shorts I don't love, it's fun watching up and coming filmmakers. Like it's basically people like us, right? People listening to this podcast who one day decide they're going to make a film. And there's always some beauty behind that and fun behind that. So I definitely recommend going or checking it out virtually.
Yeah, maybe next year will be the year I can make it. We'll see.
Dude, do it, man. And a shout out to Chris, who is the organizer of the festival. That guy, it really is a labor of love for him. It really, he's not making money on this. He's trying to break even. That's all he's trying to do. But he's doing this because of his love of film. So shout out to Chris from Chattanooga Film Festival.
All right, but this week we are going to the cornfield. We're going to review Clown in the Cornfield. Hopefully we want Jody to get back on because he's actually read the book this is based off of. Neither Mondo or I have, so hopefully we can get into a little bit deeper. But for now, let's just straight up talk about the movie. Mondo, give us a plot synopsis.
I'm going to do my best, guys. I'm not I'll do my best. I'm not going to be a Jody in-depth synopsis. Clown in a Cornfield. We basically start out with Quinn and her dad Glenn moving to this small town of Kettle Springs. Quinn is a teenager. Glenn, I believe we find out, is a doctor. And they move there for whatever reason. They allude later on to being something with Glenn's job, et cetera, et cetera. But we find out that in the past, a corn syrup factory was burned down and it was blamed on the kids, and Friendo the clown killed some of these kids in a cornfield, hence the term clown in a cornfield. Right away, movie jumps right in saying this is what the movie's about. Gonna be clowns, gonna be a cornfield. Cool. And then we see that things happen. Eventually they're doing the 100th day Founders Day parade. The float gets burned down. Quinn and her newly made friends are blamed for it. And the next thing we know, they are being stalked by Friendo the clown. And then we find out there are many Friendo the clowns. And it goes into a wild conspiracy theory with the town. At the end, obviously, the kids come up victorious and beat the clown army. So that's it in a quick nutshell. A lot of things happen between point A and point B. So, Jason, what did you think about Clown in a Cornfield?
Yeah, so I mean, this episode's gonna be a little all over the place. So usually I go last, but I'm gonna go first this time because I have thoughts.
Hey, I threw it right to you because I was like, Jason never gets to go first. And when we were talking about this in our chat, that's the first thing Jason says. I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm very happy because I saw this movie weeks ago or a couple weeks ago, and after watching all these movies at Chattanooga, my brain is kind of fried. So have at it, my friend.
Yeah, so this came out back in May, and we're recording this at the tail end of June for those keeping track. So I guess it's been out for about almost 2 months. And I didn't see it when it first came out. The reviews were kind of that I just saw. I didn't read any reviews, but I just saw, the headlines and stuff were kind of mixed. No one was like over the moon about it. And then I heard you and Jody kind of didn't give glowing reviews about it. So my expectations were pretty low. And I watched this over 2 nights, or I think like I watched like half early in the day, and then I stopped and had to do stuff, and then I came back to it. So I think I stopped right around the point where there's like 2 other friends who get murdered kind of early on, and they're kind of like solo bits. And I didn't really know anything about this movie, so I was figuring this was like some supernatural clown movie, and I was kind of like, clowns are a little overdone right now. Supernatural clown doesn't really do much for me. So those 2 characters kind of get off and in relatively gruesome ways. So at least it's it earns an R rating. And then I kind of stopped. I'm like, well, I have to watch it for the show, so I'm going to finish it, yada, yada, yada. And then I was kind of taken by the second half. I really kind of enjoyed it. I really once it gets its groove on, when it goes to that kind of barn cornfield party, because all of a sudden, you're expecting, okay, there's this one supernatural clown, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly there's a bunch of them. I'm like, oh, that's different. We don't see a bunch of arts or a bunch of Pennywises. Usually one. Okay, now we're getting multiple. And then suddenly they can shoot them. And I'm like, okay, you can shoot a clown or whatever it is. But then there's a scene where one of the clowns goes to Glenn, the father, who's a doctor, and wants him to like patch up his other clown friends. I'm like, oh wait, these are at least somewhat human. So like I'm trying to like in my head go through the gymnastics to figure out what exactly is happening in this movie. And I was kind of taken up with that. I found it kind of interesting. And one of the characters, Cole, who's supposedly the main love interest of the actor of Quinn, our main female protagonist, who really looks like I think it's not Selena Gomez, Haley Seinfeld from Sinners most recently. I thought it was like her sister or something. And I really I liked her. She was very charismatic. So we have a great bit with this guy, and he's also like, you feel like he's got a dark past or something up with him. So we kind of go through some back and forth with them, and we come to find out actually that there's another guy who's like kind of a town hillbilly in a way, but it turns out that the hillbilly guy and Cole, are attracted to one another. It turns out they're both gay. And that was the reason why he was being so awkward. And instead of it being it's set up like a red herring, but it turns out, no, it's more like he's in the closet, and that's why he's kind of disappearing and kind of shrugging off. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting like way to.
I like that angle, right? But I think
Mhm.
it was just kind of revealed very poorly.
Yeah, I mean,
And
within the context of this movie, with kind of everything else kind of going on, I was like,
yeah,
okay, sure.
but I do like that one of the gay characters was he was, drove a truck and had a shotgun and goes hunting.
Mhm.
And I love that because so many times especially when you have someone who's not in the LGBTQ community who writes these characters, they typecast them sometimes in this very, very small shell. And I really
Right.
like the fact that you had someone who, because people like that definitely exist out there.
Yeah, totally.
There's a comedian I love, and oh my God, Pete, I'll get his name by the end of it. And he's very much like that. He talks about how he's, a total hillbilly, but he's also gay. And it's cool to see representation like that.
Yeah, and it was
But
just a good way to kind of throw the audience off balance a little bit.
yeah, my only the weird complaint of mine is and granted, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't have the complaint as much anymore. Is that especially kids nowadays? It's very much in the open and it's very much accepted, more so
Well,
than it
except
was
that
back
this
there.
is a small town, middle America.
Yes,
So
that's the part I wasn't thinking about until about right now. When I
right.
was like, in a small town like that, there's a good chance you would keep that under wraps. And I wouldn't think the worry would be your friends finding out. It'd be your friend finding out, telling their dad, and then your parents. I can definitely see that. But
Well, and that brings
yeah.
me to what I really like about this movie. My favorite thing is that Cole's father is played by Kevin Durand, who was like the MVP of Abigail. He was the guy who looked like bloated Elon Musk, who was kind of the muscle. He was hilarious in Abigail, and he plays Cole's father in here, and he just goes so over the top, and I loved all of it. I thought he was amazing. When he turns out that he's like the lead villain, and he has like full on clown makeup. I'm like, this guy could play the Joker. He really was going for it, and I loved it. And
I'd argue that he's too big of a command. Like his presence is too big to play the Joker, and that like as far as his size.
Yeah, obviously they're not going to have Kevin Durant play the Joker, but like like an alternate universe, like a multiverse Joker.
I got you, yeah.
But he was just because he had the makeup on, he was just acting through the makeup. Some people hide behind makeup, and some people push through and act through the makeup. And it was awesome. I loved it. So that's kind of the climax, and there's a couple like really gory bits. Like one of the clowns, like something just falls on his head out of nowhere, and just like splatters. And I was like, okay. So I would say in the end, I loved the second half of this movie. It really won me over. And like the first half, I was like kind of ho hum, and in the end, it had some really fun moments, a couple twists, and again, Kevin Durand chewing scenery. I always like that. I could watch him perform all day.
No, I'm with you. I think there's a lot of good stuff about this and a lot of bad stuff about this. I think this was a case of a book being adapted for film and losing a lot of nuance.
Yeah.
And it's what's interesting about this movie is it made me want to read the book. Because there's so many good ideas like just kind of that are kind of hiding under the surface, I think, that never get fully fleshed out. That I think probably get fleshed out when you have the advantage of putting it into a novel as opposed to a tight. I think it was like 100 and it was about an hour and a half or so, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, very a very compact movie, which is I'm never going to complain about. But I think that they just scratch the surface on some of these things, and some of the other things like the reveal and all the clowns doesn't quite hit the way I think it should. I think it was kind of a letdown in a way, and I think that it telegraphed a lot of stuff too that that wouldn't be telegraphed on paper if you're reading it. I like to think the love between the two gay children. I think that's probably it's probably written out better in the book than it is on screen when it's kind of just they give you the reveal, then it just goes forward, and then they kind of lay on top of that. But for the most part, like I think I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was a bad movie. I don't think you'd waste your time seeing it, but I also don't think I'd ever watch it again.
Yeah. I think from the book, there's so many characters that they have in there that that are in the book. There's like, okay, we got them in the movie and we're just going to kill them off. But you can tell that that they have probably whole character like stories that's in the book that they're hinting at in the movie. But in the normal movie, they wouldn't bother with it, give them any real nuance and just kill them off. But because adaptation, it's like hints at more than there really is.
And sometimes I think you have to cut some stuff out if you're going to put it into a movie, because a couple things that really didn't land for me is Quinn has this tension with her father about why they're in this small town, and they bring up like they have one little argument where he's like, you agree to this, we do everything for you, this is for your career, and I was like, you can't just give that to me in the middle of the movie and never really discuss it before or after that. Like right. I need that to be a thread that I can kind of sink my teeth into, because if not, that scene just kind of feels out of place. And then it seemed like a throwaway, but it ends up being a big part of the movie. And spoilers, if you guys have not watched this and don't want it to be spoiled, please. Well, we've already spoiled a bunch of stuff, but I'm about to spoil the very ending of this. And there's a scene they do where there's a throwaway line about him saying, I was going to teach you how to drive a manual. And then at the end, she has to drive that manual to kill the clown. And he teaches her in like 30 seconds how to drive a manual car. Right. Like the reality of it is that fucking thing would have been stalling every like 5 feet. And I think that's probably in the book, they probably flesh that out. And that's probably like a thread throughout the book, or they dive deeper into why that's a big deal. And I understand it as a screenwriter, they probably don't want to cut out a lot of that stuff that seems like it was substantial. But I also think sometimes you have to know when you have to pivot and shift when you're adapting a film for screen, or a book for a film, I should say.
Yeah, there's a couple bits that are like, oh, silly millennials or Gen Zers that don't know how to drive stick. I don't know how to drive stick, for complete honesty. There was one bit that was really funny. Drive stick.
I learned it when I was like 18 in my parents' 1979 Jeep that had one of the most unforgiving clutch of all time. And but you want to know what? I haven't driven one since. And it's whenever I'm gonna rant here outside of the movie, but whenever I hear someone like complain that kids today couldn't use a rotary phone, kids today can't do this. Well, guess what? Fucking Barbara, when you grew up, did you know how to use a fucking abacus? No, because you didn't need to. Like there's no reason for a kid to know how to use a rotary phone.
Speaking of rotary phones, though, there's one really funny bit that I really liked where they're running the house. They want to call that 911. They're trying to find a phone, and they can only find a rotary phone, and they don't know how to use it.
I'm also going to argue this point too, that one of them they would have figured it out. They would have figured it out.
But they're in the panic. Yada yada. I thought it was a funny beat because that's exactly what a teenager nowadays would do. They wouldn't know what to do with that thing.
Well, nowadays, the way fucking kids see people talk on the phone, like, how many people actually fucking hold their phone at the ear like a normal human being? How many people walk around fucking talking to the goddamn microphone on the bottom and then putting that shit to their ear, which all it does is distort the audio so you can't hear it as well. They built a fucking receiver in your goddamn phone to hold the fucking ear hole up to your ear, or up to your ear hole, and you'll be great. I'm an old man rant to kill time while Jody's trying to come back. But I was walking into Target or out of Target the other day, and some guy's walking in, and again he's talking on his phone with his. If you guys are watching video right now, I have my phone held in my hand with a speaker to my lips like I'm fucking stupid, and that's how he's talking on the phone. He has AirPods in his ears. I'm like, you have the perfect audio and microphone delivery system already in your ears. Why are you not using it? And it looks like he's having trouble hearing them. I'm like, yeah, because you have an AirPod blocking your ear hole, which would just deliver the sound directly into them, and I wouldn't have to hear your conversation.
Yeah, it's like the guy who...
If you use your speakerphone in public, I have beef with you.
Yeah, it's like the guy who has like, a hat and sunglasses on top, but he's using his hands.
Someone made that meme that goes, man too stupid to understand how hat works or something. That's my rant. That's one of my biggest pet peeves in public, because I don't want to hear a conversation. I don't need to know that you got a mammogram last week. I don't.
Yeah, also this movie is directed by Eli Craig, who did Tucker and Dale versus Evil. And I didn't realize that till after the movie, and then I'm like, okay, I kind of get this movie a little more now. I'm a little more, I see the through line between the two movies. Obviously Tucker and Dale is a much better movie, but again, it kind of makes it gel a little bit better when I understand that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I think there really is there's definitely a target audience for this, and I don't think it's us.
Yeah, it's interesting because it came out in the theater, but obviously it's more for like an elder Gen Z crowd, which are more streamers at this point. I would assume they want to watch stuff on streaming, So I'm curious if it would done better like as a Netflix movie. I'm kind of surprised that this came to theaters, to be honest.
Did you see what the box office did on it?
No, I don't
Because
have
I'm
that.
not mistaken, the box office on it wasn't bad.
Wasn't
It
bad.
was,
So I mean, they probably figured it's a popular novel series.
yeah. And I think a lot of times too, when these movies get put into the theater, they don't expect it to make all of its money in the theater. They expect the money to be on VOD, streaming, etc. Realistically,
yeah, I definitely think this movie will play better with that crowd,
yeah.
when it hits like Netflix or whatever, wherever it lands.
And that's where I think kind of the sweet spot is for this movie. It's going to be for, we're in our 40s, right? It's going to be for like your middle-aged 30 to 40-year-old dad who wants to take his kids to see a slasher film, whose kids are getting into horror. I wouldn't show this to my, I don't know, I'd probably show this to my 8-year-old. I'm not going to lie, but your mileage may vary on that. But you have kids, 13, 12 that are getting into horror. There are some gruesome kills, but they're done very. They don't seem sinister or over the top mean. Like it's not like they're watching Martyrs or something like that, right? There's some over the top fun kills, a decent slasher story, and Clown in the Cornfield, the novel, is meant for a more of a young adult audience.
Totally. Yeah, again, I like the cast. The lead is played by Katie Douglas. She's still relatively new, but she's in a bunch of episodes of a show called Jeannie in Georgia. Again, I was like, is that Haley Seinfeld's sister? I just kept thinking of that association. The dad is played by Aaron Abrams. He was in Hannibal the series. I think he was one of the guys who does the autopsies. I forget what they're called, morticians or forensic scientists in that movie. So it's kind of more side character, but he was in a lot of episodes. Cole is in the Shazam movies as one of the orphans. I'm a big fan of the first Shazam. It's probably the best of the DCU of that era. And again, we have Kevin Durand playing the father of Cole, who is kind of the mayor of the town, if I'm not mistaken. And again, he was in like Abigail and Swamp Thing, The Strain. He was even in the X-Men Wolverine movie. So I just love Kevin Durand, and I want to see him in more stuff. So if this gets him in more stuff.
He played the Blob, I think, in one of those X-Men movies.
Yeah. It was only for like a minute, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't love the X-Men movies. I'm just gonna say that as an X-Men fan growing up, it's just they've never quite nailed like, and not to say they haven't nailed like some of the casting. I thought has been fantastic. Obviously, like back in the day, if anybody remembers Wizards magazine, which was kind of like the nerd culture magazine back then, they would do these like fantasy castings of these comic books. Right. I still remember that everyone was in agreement that Patrick Stewart should play Professor X. So there's some really good casting in that. Famke Janssen is Jean Grey, all that stuff, great. But I just in the movies, just the story wise didn't land for me. But the Logan film, I thought was phenomenal.
Yeah. I was gonna say pretty much the first three I love. Logan I loved. I like Days of Future Past, even First Class I like, but then like the Phoenix and the Apocalypse ones were just really rough.
Some of those stories are ones I grew up on, and knowing the comic book story, again, I'm probably judging it from a different lens than you are, and I don't mean that as a bad thing for you or bad thing for me. It's just how it's going to be, right? Yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things where for the first movie, we're all waiting to see what it was going to be like, and I read the comics to a degree, and once I got over the fact it wasn't going to be exactly like the comics, and this is again like when comic book movies were still trying to find their footing. With major audiences, I was like, okay, it's doing its version. It's kind of its thing, its interpretation. It's not trying to be the comic book come to life.
I think it's funny if, like, let's say X-Men were to come out even 10 years ago, it'd be completely different and treated completely different. And you can definitely tell in those first few movies, they were aiming them towards a non-comic book crowd. They hadn't quite conditioned people that there's this whole comic book world and you're going to see different multiverses and stuff like that. But it is what it is. It's not really that big of a deal. There's a reason like the comics still exist. You can go back and read whatever comics you want. So
yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure not to go too far right, but also not right. What the fuck did I say right for? Too far off track, I guess. God damn it.
Off ramp.
Yeah, too far off ramp. That's a great pun for this movie. I guess pun. Yes. I don't know. But I do think though, like even those movies have definitely brought in new people to the comics, new people discovering the characters, which is really never a bad thing. And like I said, even this movie, it not landing for me, Again, it's given me interest in reading the book and seeing how they did these things in the book. And I do think that like when you can do that is great. Like I really wanted Jody's opinion as someone who's read the books, how they feel about the movie. Because a lot of times when you've read the book and you love the book or enjoy the book and a movie takes liberties with it or goes different directions, it can really ruin it for you. So I was hoping he'd get his internet figured out, but alas, maybe it is not meant to be.
Yeah, he popped on for a minute. Yeah, maybe if you're able to get Jody on, we can add in his thoughts on it, but we'll see. Either way, that's our opinions on Clown in the Cornfield. I'm having trouble reading this movie. Mondo, what do you give this movie out of 5?
It's a tough one for me because again, I try. It's kind of like how when I used to write a beer blog way back in the day, before beer was super trendy and cool, and people tried to disguise, a hobby as alcoholism or alcoholism as a hobby. I used to always say that I can appreciate something even if it's not to my taste. Does that make sense? Like, and one of the best examples I had is one of my favorite breweries makes a Belgian triple. I don't like Belgian beers, but they asked me to do a review on it, so I drank it and I reviewed it, and I was very positive on it because even though I didn't enjoy it, it was nailed the style, nailed what it should have been. Now, that's why I'm not going super low on this, because even though I really did not enjoy it, by the end of it, I was like, I'd have been okay never watching that. I think it has its crowd. It definitely did some things right, and I think it opens up kind of a doorway for newer horror fans or for people to discover the novels, which is always a positive thing. So I'm going to go 2.5. Which I don't think is a bad score. I think it's just kind of right in the middle. If you watch it, I think I don't think a lot of people are going to love it. I don't think a lot of people are going to hate it. I think it's going to be kind of one of those films that's just there. And but hopefully that again it pushes people to discover the novels maybe, or maybe for younger people who are getting into horror, it might make them want to see more horror, want to see other slasher films, et cetera, et cetera. There's nothing wrong with a gateway drug, right?
Yeah. Mono, did you see Fear Street Prom Night?
Yes.
So like I kind of put them kind of in a bucket together where they're trying to be for a younger crowd, but still adult enough for the more seasoned horror fans to be interested.
Yeah, I think Prom Night did that a little bit differently. I think their the gimmick of being set in the 80s was kind of how they were trying to get us old people into it, and which I'm okay with. I think that setting just works better for me as a viewer, or just even like the whole. Yeah, I think it works. I think I can relate to it more if that makes sense. But I'd probably put them pretty close on par, and they're both to be fair, they're both perfectly fine watches. Like I'm not gonna. No. If you watch it, I don't think you're gonna be mad.
Yeah, I would put Prom Night one slightly ahead of this one. I'd give that probably a 3-ish.
Me too.
Well, I'll probably give this one a 2.5, and I could probably even give it 2, but I just love Kevin Durand in this so much.
If it wasn't for that third act, I'd probably go 2.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, for Kevin Durand, if it wasn't for that, and the lead actress too, I thought did a very, very good job. So I think a lot of the problems probably lied in the script itself, and it happens, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right, that is Clown in the Cornfield. Let's do a quick shout out while I get it up. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Fred Decker, director of Monster Squad, and you're listening to Dads from the Crypt.
So that is the Mr. Fred Decker. For those that haven't seen in our feeds or on our YouTube, we actually did an interview with Mr. Fred Decker. We talked about Monster Squad and the 4 Tales from the Crypt episodes that he wrote and the one that he directed. Did a really great interview. Really cool guy. Really nice. Really had a really good time talking to him. So I highly recommend, if you're listening to this, go check that out. Okay. All right, Mondo, do you have a song of the day?
Well, let's get into. Do we do song? We do song of the day before horror news. Yes, I have one that I just picked at the beginning of the show because it popped into my head because of our good friend Jody, who is hopefully okay in the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. He messaged us to say it's storming there now. So, but we're gonna go with Mountain Song by Jane's Addiction, because the first line is coming down the mountain. It's not about mountains, obviously.
What's it about? Pretty much all their songs are about one thing.
I'm pretty sure this song is about drug abuse, but that's I
Yeah.
don't know it well enough. I'm not gonna pretend like I do. I was never a big Jane's Addiction fan, aside from the hits that I would see on Beavis and Butthead and like Headbangers Ball when I was younger. But it's an iconic song. So
It is. It's a fun song.
Yeah, it's off the record Nothing's Shocking from 1988.
Which is a great album. It's an awesome album cover.
Yeah, great album
like
cover.
Two women can join on fire. It's cool.
Yeah. So check it out for all you youngsters out there who decided to check out a Clown in the Cornfield review. Go back and listen to some music your parents probably listened to, or maybe at this point your grandparents listened to. I don't know.
No, actually, so funny story. My wife does tutoring, and she happened to tutor the son of the drummer of Jane's Addiction.
Oh, no shit.
They actually did a concert at the Hollywood Bowl with Smashing Pumpkins. They were doing a tour, so she was able to get us like friends and family tickets. So,
oh man, that's cool.
I'm also a really big Smashing Pumpkins fan. I like Jane's Addiction again for the hits, but yeah. So we had a really good time. They put on a hell of a show. They're really good live. I'll give them that. Though they brought part of their stage shows to have like burlesque dancers. And the Hollywood Bowl is always feels like a classy joint to me. It's like this like old time Hollywood place. So it just felt like sacrilege in some weird way. I don't know.
Yeah, you know what though, man? I think kind of like
it's rock and roll, whatever.
Well, I think burlesque is kind of that cool. It's kind of a very cool art form to where you can kind of adapt it to so many different things. Like you can make it feel at home in a dive bar or at home in a classy just at a classy joint too, based on how the performers act. Like right now here in Vegas at one of the casinos, they're doing the Empire Strips Back.
Yes, I get so many ads for that.
Yeah, me too. I think we're gonna go see it. I think me and my wife are gonna go see it because it looks just super fun. And But I do think that's a cool thing about burlesque because it can be adapted to so many things. And the other thing I love about burlesque too is that it's very positive towards so many different body styles. Like it's very, very body positive.
If you do go to the Empire Strips Back, I want to report.
We'll do a special episode.
And then what's really cool is we got to go to the friends and family area after the show. Oh, so I got to meet him, and then I was like 5 feet from Perry Farrell, and I took a ninja selfie, where he's just standing there, and I'm just kind of
I think this is funny because Jason, a man who's like 6'5" and looks like a mountain, taking a ninja selfie. It's just like
I was like too nervous to say hi to him. So
did you ever see Arnold Schwarzenegger? I don't know if he still is. I don't like going there as much anymore. He used to be very active on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever he caught someone taking a photo of him at the gym, he'd pull out his phone and take a photo back.
That's awesome.
But he'd always tell people, he goes, "Hey, if you see me at the gym," he goes, "just come say hi to me. I'm always happy to meet people and take a picture. I love it." So I just thought that's funny.
He doesn't have his own gym. I would figure he just or is he going to public gyms for fun?
I don't know, dude. I didn't talk to him about it. Like he didn't call me and tell me what his plans were for why he does that. So, but now honestly, I'm curious too, and it's gonna bug me.
Speaking of Arnold, a friend of mine used to work at the sneaker store on Bel Air, where all these celebrities would come in and athletes, and they'd have comp accounts. So you just bring whole entourages.
No one outside of Los Angeles has any idea what you're talking about. But keep going.
Bel Air, the really nice part of Los Angeles.
Oh yeah, we know that, but it's still it's a California thing. You fucking Californians always do. You just assume everybody knows everything in California.
If you're a mucky muck of some sort, you can get comp accounts, and then you can just bring your friends and buy them however much is on your comp account. And my friend would always tell the story about Arnold Schwarzenegger came in and gave him a pep speech about getting all the shoes, and so I was like, show us some initiative. Go get the shoes.
Well, okay, was he doing an asshole or kind of tongue in cheek?
No, tongue in cheek. He did a whole thing to to have some fun with him. Supposedly he was a very cool guy. He's told me a lot of celebrity stories, and Schwarzenegger was one of his favorites.
Interesting.
All right, Mondo, give us some horror news if you got some.
I do. I looked some up when I found out Jody was going to have some trouble. So one interesting thing is they are looking to adapt The Stand onto the big screen. Yep,
Yeah.
Jason has made a face, and I feel the exact same way.
Speaking of trying to adapt, a book into a reasonable
Yeah, that's kind of
size.
why I led. That's kind of why I led with this. It's gonna be done by I forgot the guy's name. Lyman. He did The Bourne Identity and did Edge of Tomorrow. A bunch of other
He's
stuff.
a good director, but
yeah, I just think when you're trying to take that much source material and condense it down to something that movie audiences will find palatable, it's gonna be very difficult. Like, you're gonna have to do a 4-hour movie, realistically.
yeah.
But I also think
being
that
nice.
yeah, and I think it's gonna be one of those movies that if you're a Stephen King fan and have read The Stand, you're gonna fucking hate it. But it might hit for newer audiences. So much like Clown in the Cornfield, maybe it'll be a thing where people watch it, then want to go explore the source material. So,
But didn't they just do a miniseries too?
Another miniseries, man? I don't remember.
I think it was out of The Stand or one like something like another Stephen King one like that. They literally just did a miniseries. I suppose it was okay. But whatever. Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't remember, dude.
It's fine.
Couple other things. If you've seen already, 28 years later is now in the theaters, and I believe Jason has a little mini review he's doing on that.
Yeah, me and Kristen Lopez did what we called a mini review, but ended up being 55 minutes review. That's already out now on our podcast feed and YouTube as well. Real quick, I liked it, but there's like a lot of things happening, and some of them work, some of them don't. But it's one of those movies I would rather it be too ambitious than not as ambitious. They go big, and so I'd rather them go big than go small. So, and again, it's also part of a trilogy, so it's hard to judge it. So, it's definitely worth seeing. There's some really amazing moments of both horror and beauty. The score's really good. It's definitely an interesting set, but there's definitely some moments you're like, and that does not quite work for me, and other moments like that's some of the best filmmaking I've ever seen. So, I feel like the jury's still on that one until the next movie comes out.
Yeah. I think I famously said I haven't seen the first two, so I'll eventually watch those, and I'll get to this one. So we'll get there. So there's a couple other things that I read, some more obscure things, kind of some fun stuff. Is do you remember the movie Witchboard?
Yes.
Did you know it's getting a remake and a reboot, I should say? Yeah,
by Chuck Russell of Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors, and my personal favorite, The Blob.
Yep. It comes out August 15th. It looks like it's going to be in theaters. And I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of happy for this. We might have talked about this back in the day when they were doing pre-production on it. Yeah. But I don't know, man. Like
I'm into it on paper. I watched the trailer and I was kind of like, this doesn't look very interesting, but it looked very generic. But in Chuck, I trust, so we'll see.
Exactly. Just another movie that popped up on VOD that I read about that looks interesting and wacky. It's called Grandma's Cookies: A Christmas Tale. Yeah, it's a Christmas horror theme, basically about Eileen Dietz from the Dietz, right, from The Exorcist. She's baking cookies. It's the whole story is her baking cookies for an evil Santa Claus.
Sure.
Give me some wacky shit, dude. I'm fucking into it. But yeah, that's really all I have right now. There's probably more stuff coming out. I just read that the Crystal Lake series is starting to wrap shooting by November.
Oh,
so we should actually have that. I think early.
That's actually year. There's another Crystal Lake or Jason related. There have the guy who did, I forget which movie. I think it was the Wrong Turn movies. He's doing like a shorts Jason film.
Sweet Revenge.
Yeah, but it's like their first actual property with Jason in it.
Right. So it's gonna be like a series of vignettes about Jason. Which you know what, like
short film that's gonna play like on their website or something.
Yeah, I read about this and I kind of love the idea. Just getting like these weird, because you don't always have to have a huge a ton of, everybody knows the backstory of Jason Voorhees at this point. While I am a believer that in most good horror movies, good slashers, you have to have some kind of connection with the characters. But I think we're at the point now with Jason Voorhees where people just want to see this guy just fuck people up with a machete. And
Right.
I think a vignette format could do a really good job, but they introduce like one character and their struggle against Jason I don't know. I'm actually pretty interested in that too.
Yeah, I'm very interested. It's like people want a Jason movie, but I'm like, kind of in this day and age, at least to reboot the character a little bit to gauge where people's interests are. This is kind of an interesting way to test the waters.
You know, I still definitely do want a Jason movie, but who knows if we'll see one. So I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'll take what I can get.
Right.
I'm actually blown away in this modern era of reboots and trying to, you know, drudge up every old IP they can find. Like they're doing a Tower of Terror movie with Scarlett Johansson. Like,
Yeah.
like I don't know, man. But I'm really surprised that we haven't seen those like, you know, the Freddy and the Jason franchises come back, especially with Michael Myers coming back. You know.
Yeah, I think the deal is that with the Jasons, with all the lawsuits around the Jason character, that was the biggest block. I think with I think the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot bombed so badly and was hated so much.
Yeah.
It's been toxic. They still think it's toxic, and they just haven't found a way to do it.
I think people are ready again, though.
I think people are ready, but I don't think they're ready to take the risk yet.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I also think, and you know what? I honestly think, after going back and watching some old Freddy's Nightmares, I think there's some legs there to do something like that, but just do it better with money.
Yeah.
And because if you watch those old episodes, there are again like these great ideas that just kind of fall flat because they had to stretch it out or just didn't work out with the budget or whatnot. And after going through and reading these, you can find them on the Internet Archives, reading the old Nightmare on Elm Street novels, there are some really freaking good ideas in there. Like some really cool ideas that it would take a budget to put on screen, but I think they could do. Now, in my heart of hearts, all I want them to do, because you could have Robert Englund play Freddy for half this movie. For 2 acts, this movie you could play. If you've ever read the script that Guillermo del Toro did for Nightmare on Elm Street, that would be like the next one that would work. Like the old man Freddy and the kids go to sleep because they can kick his ass just to beat the shit out of him. Like you could have Robert Englund in the first half of that because he wouldn't have to do the athletic stuff that he would need to. And then he could just, he could just be the guy in the costume until whatever action scene starts. But then at the end, that's when it could transition to now you get a different version of Freddy. That's a new actor, more violent. Go back to the evil thing. I don't know, man. Like again, what's Uber Freddy? Get him in the same machine that they put Jason in. Like after watching Jason 10 again, like all I can think of is they're sitting there watching Jason rebuild, and nobody has thought to go unplug the fucking machine. Like when I watch it again, like they're just sitting there watching this. Like they know this is not going to turn out well. But my other favorite thing is the machine that revives Jason and makes him into Uber Jason also like upgrades his non-carbon life form fucking hockey mask too.
Right.
I say this with the most admiration for that movie. I love that movie so much.
Right. Yeah. So I also got it on 4K last week, and I was watching that. I was watching the special features. And I didn't realize the guy who designed the Uber Jason suit was the same guy who did the RoboCop suit.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes sense too when you see that.
Yeah. The styling makes a lot more sense once I realized that.
And I'm sure they hired him because of that. So it makes all the sense in the world. Yeah. And also, man, like that was the last Friday the 13th film that Kane Hodder was involved in. Sadly, and not a knock on Ken Krinzinger that did Freddy versus Jason and a couple other ones. But man, like Kane Hodder was the best Jason Voorhees. I think he's the first one that really embraced the role and tried to give Jason, like through his eyes, a little more person, and through his movements, a little bit more personality.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I think that's all we got for horror news. Before we wrap up, Mondo, I pulled some Would You Rather since we don't have any questions this week.
Oh, God. Also, a fun movie with Jeffrey Combs, just FYI.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Fucking razor blade the goddamn line.
Would you rather have a mullet or super long dreadlocks?
Oh, dude, easy. A super long dreadlocks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's an easy one. Because fuck, dude, like I'm sorry, man. I wish mullets and mustaches were not making a comeback. Because that's like because it's much harder to tell who should not be near a school anymore. But no, dude, like I would, you know what? So I could tie him up in a bun. I'm doing jujitsu, and then I could bang my head again at a metal concert. So yeah, let's go to the dreadlocks.
See, I'm just saying, as a white guy, I'm just like, I don't want to touch the dreads. I don't want that.
You know what, man? I'd obviously have to read up on the cultural appropriation of it. I don't know if it's. There are a lot of different schools of thought on that. So I'm
just not touching it. But also, like, I figured, a mullet, as someone who doesn't have much, as in any hair, at least on the top, I figured that would be at least something more manageable than just suddenly having all this weight coming out of my head.
Yeah, that'd be when I cut all my long hair off, man. I'm not gonna lie, that like walking out, I did it in like, God, I don't even remember when I cut it off. It was like was starting to get real hot outside, but walking outside and finally and feeling the fucking the breeze on my scalp, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
All right. Would you rather walk through scorpion infested land or swim through jelly infested water?
I already live in scorpion infested land in Las Vegas. What would I rather walk through? Man, I'm gonna sound like so I'd rather swim through the jelly infested water, and I'll tell you why. Because if I'm walking through scorpion infested land, I'm probably killing a ton of scorpions by stepping on them, and I don't feel like I should be killing shit for it just living its life.
Wow, that's the humanist answer.
Yeah, man. Like, if I have a spider, if I find a brown recluse in my house, right, that's a poisonous spider that will bite you, that can fuck you up, I'm gonna smush it. This is as a man who's afraid of spiders. If there's a little spider that I can shoo outside, go live your life, buddy. Go fucking eat some mosquitoes for me. That's kind of the way I see it. It's like, and especially when I'm outside, like, I know I'm afraid of spiders, right? But I'm getting better, I think, in the fact that I was filling my car tires up the other day, and it's like an orange spider like crawled by my tire. And I think I scared it because I moved my hand like fucking like did like this little like shudder a little bit. So I just brushed it off and put it on the ground because I was not going to be happy when I started driving. And you know what, dude? It's living its life. It's living outside in its domain. Like, who am I to smush it when it's just out there trying to do its shit? And I kind of look at that, and I can't remember what famous philosopher. I don't know who said it. Someone famous said, I hope no one would ever kill me just because I was in a place they didn't want me to be. Your go.
I was going for much more practical, and I'm thinking, I could probably walk better than I could swim. And then again, if I get stung by jellyfish, I could drown once I'm in the water. And if I'm on land, at least I could just, I won't just instantly drown by just being on land. So I'm going with the land.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Jason, that's fine. I don't swim that well at all, so I'll be doggy paddling my ass. And you also didn't say distance. There's a lot of factors that are going to go.
Okay, I didn't say obviously doesn't know how distance or whether you can run. I mean, I could definitely run through the scorpions really quick. Not really quick, but relatively quick. And again, yeah.
You say that, but how often do you practice running?
Man, my dog got loose. I ran after it for 2 hours,
like nonstop running.
Well, okay, I ran after it.
Were you walking?
I was burst of running for 2 hours.
Okay,
trying to get that fucker back.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna switch it up for something a little more philosophical for the last one. Would you rather learn from past mistakes or other people's mistakes?
So I'm a big believer that it's sometimes hard to learn from other people's mistakes. Because everybody's different, right? Everybody's situation is different. I'm not saying you can't, don't get me wrong, but I do think you learn better when you fuck up on your own and then have to figure out how to fix it. I just think that's how we all do. It's, like for some person, a mistake is not a mistake for the next person, if that makes sense. Like, so I'm going to go with learning from my own mistakes, because I think that's the best way to grow as a person, is to acknowledge that you make mistakes. I mean, the hard part in like society in general is that you have this boomer generation, and I'm not really knocking them for being the boomer generation, but you have a lot of people that don't understand that it's okay, even if you're an adult, to make a mistake. That mistakes happen. and you're not just because you have kids. I'm going to go right into dad advice right here. I'm going to go to some dad advice here.
Yeah.
And it is very important for your kids and for kids to understand that adults can be wrong and adults can apologize and admit they made mistakes. And I think that you and I probably come from a generation where our parents really didn't do that very often. That if they made a mistake that affected your life, somehow it was your fault, or they were just doing what was in your best interest. And I think one of the best things you can ever do, and like my wife goes every week to group therapy with my child, and that's one thing that's very hard to do is apologize to your child or apologize to a kid that you made a mistake, that you did someone to fuck their life up. And we all have, like every parent out there, even if you're listening to this right now and you don't have kids or you have small kids, you're not perfect. You didn't do perfect. You fucked your kids up in some way. You probably, though, had this big umbrella that you shield them from a lot of generational trauma. And if they have kids, they'll do the same thing to their kids. So I'm not saying that you're not doing good because you caused your kids some trauma, but you did. That's just the reality of it. We all did.
That's just part of the human condition.
It really is. And, we have generational trauma that we got from the generation before us, and we passed some of that down. We just tried to not pass as much of it down. And so I think that's one thing that's very, very big is letting kids know that, hey, man, I'm 42. I made a shitload of mistakes in my life. I made mistakes by the way I raised you. I made mistakes by the way I treated you. And, all I can do is try to get better and atone for those. So, I'm going to go with my past mistakes, the most important thing to learn from.
Yeah, I mean, as far as this question's concerned, it'd be cool to learn from other people's mistakes because they are learning, just because you learn a lot more on the universal level from all these other people's mistakes. Okay, great. But does that really mean anything for you? So yeah, I mean, if you're not learning from your own mistakes, you're just going to repeat over and over and over again. And again, bringing it back to what you're saying about parenting, that's like the kids learn more from watching than they do from someone telling them, really. When it comes down to it, they model behavior, and what they see you do, especially as their parents, speaks to them much more than, anything else. So yeah, that's a big part of because I get mad at my kids sometimes. Sometimes I go a little harder than I should have, verbally or whatever. And then once things calm down, it's my responsibility to say, hey, I'm sorry I said X, Y, and Z. I was upset. This is what I should have said, or this is what I was trying to explain to you in the moment. And I'm sorry I didn't handle that as well as I could have. Man,
and you're giving them a pathway to do the same thing when they, I wonder, like, when your kids get older, if they're going to blow up on you, because it'll happen, right? Like every parent has that era where their kid hates them, and hate's a strong word, but you know what I mean. But maybe they'll pull the same thing on you and be like, Dad, like I said this and I shouldn't have said that in the moment. I was just angry, because they saw you do the same thing, so they know it's okay. Yeah, totally. Yeah, very, very important. Like, and I'll extend this to the world out there. I was my wife and I had gone out and had some drinks and stuff, and she only had one drink. She was driving. I was not in condition to drive at this point. And we went to a grocery store, and I bumped into a little kid by accident because I was turning the corner same time he was. I wasn't paying attention. Totally my fault. So I apologized to him. And his dad's like, what? I'm like, no, I'm going to apologize to your kid, man. I bumped into him. It's my fault. Like, so I said, hey, man, I'm sorry, man. I wasn't looking where I was going. I walked away. And I just look at it as like, the kid looked at me like he's never had an adult apologize to him before. And I'm like, I was in the wrong, dude. Like, the kid was paying attention where he's going. I wasn't. And I think it's good just for kids to see that and understand that it's okay. Mistakes are going to happen. We're all going to make mistakes, right? Like, just how do you be better tomorrow? Yeah, definitely. Hey, look at that. We got some dad advice, and we haven't done that in a while. We need to bring that shit back, Jason. Or, man, start asking our Patreons questions again, or Twitter questions again. Those are always fun. We'll always get some fun answers and some fun responses. Yeah. Just saying. All right. Just saying. Send us some questions, man. Well, you have to ask for them, though. You can't just assume people are. People are busy, dude. If you don't put a call for questions out, no one's going to ever ask a question. All right. I'm just saying, there is, if we just talk to the person that handles our social media and let him know that he should be asking questions, we can probably just get this taken care of. I'll give him a ring. Yeah, if you can reach out to that person, Jason, that'd be fantastic. I'll see what I can do. I'll take that under advisement, Mondo. Okay, I appreciate that. That's all I can ask for. I can just put it out there and hope the boss man, takes my words in consideration and doesn't just forget about them. Or you're gonna stop this podcast. You're gonna walk over and tell your wife, like, God, I fucking hate this. Like, I'm not fucking doing it.
Okay. Before the podcast breaks up on air.
Before we wrap up, how was you just got back from a cruise to Mexico?
Yeah. Me and my wife did a cruise. We dropped the kids off with their grandmother for the week. And we did a cruise. We did a cruise for our honeymoon 13 years ago up to Alaska. Nice. So we figured we'd do something a little bit more warmer this time. So it's funny because it's a cruise that was on the sea for a day, went to Catalina and then Ensenada. You could go to Catalina, Ensenada easily within a day, but somehow this cruise takes, 5 days and 4 nights to do it. But literally, I think one day we were just on the ocean just to be on the ocean, because especially with like Royal Caribbean and I'm blanking on the other one, the other major cruise, Carnival. They're really there just making obviously they're there to make money, but they're there to like make you bored, so you go spend their money on their stuff. So like, there's just all these tricks and stuff. They're always trying to squeeze you for more, and that's the part that like for the first 24 hours I get really annoyed by, because they're always trying to upgrade you and everything. Like there's like free restaurant, the food's good. I mean, not depending on what it is, but there's like better restaurants that they're trying to like get you to go to. And like the movie channels or the TV channels in the room are all really terrible. So they're trying to get you to get out and buy more drinks and stuff. It's the whole thing. Either way, though, it was just great to get out of town and just, thankfully we didn't get any seasickness this time. Went to Catalina, which was really fun. Just kind of walked around and got some history stuff that I didn't know about. And then in Ensenada, my first time going to Mexico, we did a little tour of a dairy farm where they have their own cows, and they milk them twice a day, and then they like show us the processing area, and then they actually have what they call a cheese cave. It's really like a huge like cellar that they built that's all temperature controlled, and we did like a cheese tasting, and they gave us like 8 different kinds of cheeses, and one of them was aged for 2 years. And it was like the strongest slap you in the face cheese I've ever had, but like in an interesting way. It was. I can't remember. Go ahead.
I can't remember what movie it is, but the guy goes, "What's that smell?" And he goes, "It's either good." We said it's either bad meat or good cheese.
Right. Yeah, and it just smelled incredible in there. Like we got to go through like the area where the cheese is all aging and stuff. And again, this like isn't pasteurized, and it's just like all like farm fresh. So it was like there were like levels of flavor I've never tasted in cheese before, and yeah, it was really good. And then and then they gave us like a cool Mexican lunch where they made like quesadillas with the actual cheese that they make there, and like they had like a dipping salsa that they said is Mexican hot, not like American Mexican hot. And I just tried a dab, and my tongue was numb for like at least 10 minutes afterwards.
Yes, that's good.
It tasted good for a second. It tasted good for a second, and then the rest took over. And I was like, okay.
So, if I can give you a hot sauce story, a guy I used to work with, he'd always bring a very, very hot sauce to the. He liked very, very hot sauce. So he'd always bring hot sauce to the office. So I was doing this training class. So I had people from out of Las Vegas there, and what always turns in like with hot sauce. For some reason, people made like a manly thing who can handle the most heat. Like, don't fucking get involved in that. Just handle what you can handle. It's okay. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it. But one guy was talking about how much he could handle, and he's like, "Oh man, I have this one hot sauce that's some Scovilles, da 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 da." And then he goes, "Hey, will you bring it tomorrow so I can try it?" Okay. So he goes, "Yeah, I'll bring it." So he brought it, and long story short, we get to the he comes to our class, and "Hey, did you bring that hot sauce?" He goes, "Yeah." So during lunchtime, he gives him the hot sauce, and he says, "Hey, just be careful with this because it's very, very hot." He's a toothpick. Just take a toothpick and put it in your tongue. Dude fucking takes a swig of it. He's sitting there. He goes, "Oh, it's not that bad," as he's dripping sweat, and his face is obviously a shade of red. Yeah. More of my monitor is making my face look red right now. And then he went to the bathroom. That's the last time we saw him for like 4 hours. I'm not exaggerating.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah,
dad advice: don't try to be a badass with hot sauce. Just fucking live with it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've learned. I like the taste of hot sauce, but if I have too much, I'm going to pay for it later. So I just don't bother much. Like, I'll have a dab and that's it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love hot sauce. I love hot food, but sometimes my body does not love that I love hot food, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. We reach an age where you're just like, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth the after effects.
Yeah. You know,
With
I
anything.
know. Yeah, dude. I know where my body is. I know what it likes. I know what it doesn't like. I'll figure it out from there.
All right. Well, that wraps up another episode. We are heading into July, and because of the 50th anniversary of Jaws, we're doing Hot Jaws Summer. We're going to review all 4 Jaws movies, for better or for worse. I know Jody has only seen the original, so he's going to go on a little journey with us. Mondo, have you seen all 4?
I've seen the first 2 at least. But can I just throw an on-air recommendation right now? Can we cap it with one final movie at the very, very end that's not Jaws?
We'll talk about offline.
Okay, because there's a movie that I saw at Chattanooga Film Festival called Hot Spring Shark Attack.
Ooh.
And I feel like every human being should see this movie.
All right.
Is it good? No. But I was crying laughing during it. I'll put it that way.
All right. I'll put that on the list. We'll talk. Okay. Again, appreciate everyone for listening. I would really appreciate it if you give us a rating and review on iTunes, a rating on Spotify, like and subscribe on YouTube, and follow us at Dads from the Crypt Talk on TikTok. And with that, I thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Adios.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.